The notice on my door. It was a quiet Saturday morning when I stepped onto my porch, coffee mug in hand, and saw a bright orange paper taped to my front door. Notice of eviction. It read in bold, aggressive letters. My heart skipped a beat. For a second, I thought there had to be some mistake. I owned this property outright. No mortgage, no liens, nothing. I'd bought the place 3 years ago, before the HOA was even formed. So who could possibly be trying to evict me? The answer came faster than I wanted. From across the street marched Karen, the self-appointed, HOA president and self-proclaimed guardian of community standards. Blonde bob, sunglasses on her head, and a clipboard in hand. She looked like she was about to issue parking tickets, instead of enjoying her weekend. "Good morning, Jason," she said with a fake smile that could curdle milk. "I see you got the notice. We've decided your property no longer meets HOA standards, and it's being reclaimed for neighborhood improvement." "Reclaimed?" I echoed, struggling not to laugh. "Karen, I own this property. You can't just evict me." "Oh, we'll see about that," she replied smugly. "Our lawyer says otherwise." That's when I realized she wasn't bluffing. The HOA had actually hired a lawyer to push this nonsense. A week later, I was served official papers claiming I was in violation of unauthorized ownership. It was absurd, but also terrifying. I called my attorney, Mark, who nearly laughed himself off the phone when he read the documents. "They don't have a case," he said confidently. "This is pure intimidation, but we'll handle it." The following weeks turned into a storm of HOA harassment, letters, threats, and constant inspections from Karen and her cronies. She even started showing up with a camera, taking photos of my garden and claiming I'd violated landscaping rules that didn't exist when I bought the home. But when we finally met in mediation, something unexpected happened. Karen strutted in with her lawyer, smirking like she'd already won. But the lawyer looked uneasy, almost embarrassed. As my attorney began dismantling their argument point by point, the HOA's lawyer started sweating. Halfway through, he whispered something to Karen. Her face turned bright red. Then, right in the middle of the meeting, he stood up, packed his papers, and announced, "I can't represent this case any longer." Karen was left speechless. The room went silent except for the sound of my attorney flipping another page. For the first time, I saw fear flash in her eyes. The HOA's house of cards. After the lawyer stormed out, Karen sat frozen, clutching her clipboard like it could save her. Her lips were pressed so tight they almost disappeared. The mediator called for a brief recess, but Karen didn't move. She just stared at me with that mix of fury and embarrassment only she could pull off. I tried not to smirk. "Guess your lawyer wasn't up for this one," I said. She finally spoke, her voice shaking. "He was unprofessional. He doesn't understand community law." Mark leaned forward calmly. "Karen, there is no community law that overrides state property ownership. You can't evict someone from land they legally bought." Karen slammed her clipboard shut. "We'll find another lawyer," she snapped, then stormed out of the room. But she didn't find one. Word spread fast around town that the HOA was trying to reclaim a property they didn't own. Every attorney in the area refused to take her case after learning how flimsy it was. That's when Karen took matters into her own hands. 2 days later, I woke up to the sound of hammering. When I went outside, I nearly choked on my coffee. Karen and 2 HOA members were erecting a temporary boundary fence that cut directly across my driveway. "What the hell are you doing?" I shouted. "This is HOA land," Karen declared, holding a rolled-up map that looked like it was drawn in crayon. "We're enforcing property lines until ownership is clarified." Ownership was already very clear. I had the deed. But they didn't care. I called the sheriff's department, and when the deputy arrived, Karen immediately tried to take charge, waving her clipboard like a badge. "Officer, this man is trespassing on HOA grounds." The deputy just looked at her, then at me. "Ma'am," he said dryly, "the county records show this property belongs to him. You're the ones trespassing." Karen's face went pale. Her fake confidence cracked for the first time. The deputy gave her 2 options: remove the fence, voluntarily, or face legal action for property damage. She tried to argue, but her fellow HOA members started whispering among themselves. Within minutes, they began taking the fence down, avoiding eye contact with me. Karen stomped off, muttering something about legal appeal, but I knew she wasn't done. She never quit when she was embarrassed. She doubled down. That night, I saw her porch light flick on at 11 p.m. She was on her phone, pacing, talking fast. Whatever she was planning next, it wasn't over. Karen's secret meeting. For a few peaceful days, things quieted down. No more fence building, no angry notes in my mailbox. I started to think maybe, just maybe, Karen had finally given up. But I should have known better. On a cool Thursday evening, as I took out the trash, I noticed several cars parked near the HOA clubhouse. Lights were on inside, and through the windows, I could see a small crowd gathered around Karen. She was pacing back and forth, pointing at a projector screen showing a map of the neighborhood. My property circled in red. I couldn't resist. I walked closer, staying out of sight behind the hedge, and listened through the cracked window. Karen's voice carried like a loudspeaker. "We can't let him win. If he beats us, everyone will think they can ignore HOA rules. We'll lose control." One man spoke up nervously. "But Karen, his property was bought before the HOA even existed. The bylaws don't apply to him." Karen slammed her palm on the table. "Then we'll make them apply. We'll rezone the boundary lines and submit it to the county office." That's when I realized she was actually planning to falsify property boundaries, to take over my land. I recorded everything on my phone and quietly walked away. The next morning, I paid a visit to the county zoning office. I met with a friendly clerk named Denise, who listened carefully as I explained what I'd overheard. When I showed her the video, her eyebrows shot up. "Sir," she said, "that's not just a civil issue. That's attempted property fraud." Within hours, county officials launched an investigation. By evening, word had reached Karen that she was being questioned. I saw her outside, phone in hand, pacing furiously, barking into the receiver. When I walked by, she turned on me. "You think you can outsmart me, Jason? You won't win." I kept my calm. "I don't need to win, Karen. The law already did." The next day, a county investigator and a sheriff's deputy paid her a visit. They spent nearly an hour inside her house. By the time they left, Karen was standing in her driveway, red-faced, trembling, and speechless. For the first time since this all started, I felt relief. But deep down, I knew Karen wasn't the kind to surrender quietly. And I was right, because the next move she made would turn the entire neighborhood against her. The neighborhood turns on Karen. The morning after the county's visit, the neighborhood was buzzing. Word spread faster than wildfire. Karen, the queen of the HOA, had been caught trying to alter property boundaries. At first, people didn't believe it. Karen had always presented herself as the perfect suburban guardian, organizing meetings, passing out newsletters, and bossing everyone around. But the truth was now public. Denise from the zoning office had filed an official complaint, and Karen's name was right there on the report. By noon, my neighbors started showing up at my door. "Jason, is it true?" asked Tom, the guy who lived 2 houses down. "Karen really tried to take your land?" "Yeah," I said, showing him the copy of the report. "She was caught on video planning it." Tom let out a low whistle. "Man, that's wild. She's been bullying people for years. Maybe now someone will finally stop her." Later that evening, the HOA held an emergency meeting. The clubhouse parking lot was packed. I went, not to argue, but just to see how it would unfold. Karen stood at the front, trying to act composed, but the trembling in her hands gave her away. "As your HOA president," she began, "I assure you these accusations are baseless. It's all a misunderstanding." "Misunderstanding?" Someone shouted. "You tried to evict a homeowner." Another voice joined in. "You almost got us sued, Karen." Within minutes, the crowd turned against her. People demanded her resignation. Some even shouted for an audit of all HOA funds, suspecting she might have done more than just tamper with property lines. Karen tried to regain control, raising her voice and slamming her clipboard on the podium, but no one was listening anymore. Her once loyal board members had already stepped down. Finally, the HOA treasurer stood up. "Effective immediately," he announced. "Karen is removed from her position as president of the Homeowners Association." The room erupted in applause. Karen's face went pale, then red, then pale again. She stormed out, muttering threats under her breath. But it didn't matter anymore. Her reign was over. In the following weeks, the HOA restructured. They issued me a formal apology and rescinded every false complaint Karen had filed. The new board even offered to cover my legal fees, but I declined. I just wanted peace. One evening, I saw a moving truck outside Karen's house. She stood on her porch, glaring at me one last time before slamming her door. As the truck pulled away, I finally felt the neighborhood breathe again. Karen had tried to evict me from my own property, but in the end, she only evicted herself.